The new Ioniq Electric, a vehicle more rare than some supercars. We're going to get into that in a moment. One of the most important facts or items to talk about with the Ioniq Electric is its cost. It starts at $29,000. With this thing fully loaded, it's about $33,500. Now, you throw in a federal tax credit on a base model and you're looking at the low 20s for a car like this. And it is so complete of a package. There's really, aside from range, there's really no trade-offs of driving this. So you know, I like the fact that they're marketing it towards, and they're trying to design it for real people. Most people don't have $60,000, $70,000 to piss away on an electric car. It's not a status symbol, so that's really cool. This is a regular usable car. The exterior of the Hyundai Ioniq EV, and you look at this, and there's certainly nothing that completely stands out about it. It looks like a regular compact car. They wanted this to be a normal vehicle. While it does share some styling cues with cars like, to me, the second generation Honda Insight has a little bit of Prius, but for the most part, it just doesn't stand out as something weird or awkward. Without spending a ton of time on the exterior, the hood is aluminum. The rear hatch is aluminum. There's attempts at weight savings. This is a dedicated platform to be a lightweight car. The front, because now it's an electric vehicle, you don't need a ton of cooling ports for this. So the grille's kind of covered up. You don't have to have all these little holes and nooks and crannies for air to flow, except for the typical side bumper outlet that flows air along the side of the fender and the tire, which, you know, we've seen on the Elantra. One of the strange things about the limited model here, and this is the upper trim level, they use HID headlights instead of LED headlamps. And maybe they have some technology in their ballasts and headlamps that, you know, don't take as much energy as LED bulbs, but I'm not sure why they did that aside from cost cutting. Now, Hyundai has said as a part of their mission to make this car more green is the interior uses biofabrics, green materials, recycled materials to kind of finish off the car. And the thing is, you would never know it, and that's a good thing. Usually when it's totally transparent to the driver, the person buying the car, it's mission accomplished. I don't know if it's a total lost opportunity here to make it stand out more. It just depends on the type of person you are. This looks like a regular Hyundai, like an Elantra to me, so it's just completely ergonomically sound, it's comfortable, and it's well sorted. One of the best parts about the interior space is really kind of the nooks and crannies. Everything feels good. The storage is well thought out. This is one of my favorite parts, that they've added a phone storage space right here. Your phone slides in and it's got a Q charger built in, or a wireless charger. If you have a modern Samsung or the upcoming new iPhone that supports wireless charging, or an old HTC, you slide it in there, it should activate. Now the problem is, like most wireless chargers, I've tried Samsung phones with cases on here and it never seems to turn on, it never seems to work. And it depends on what angle you have it. If you're turning and it moves, it just disconnects. It's one of those things that on paper looks cool, but is sometimes not all that practical. The storage bin at the bottom stores a lot of stuff. They have this little padded area for the button dials for park, reverse, and drive. Everything just feels really good in here. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. You can take a look at this at a dealership, or, you know, if you're really interested in if you can even find one at a dealership. We're going to go in the shop and talk some more turkey. The biggest obstacle, well, you have to charge it, which means if you don't have a large battery pack and a massive range, infrastructure in the US is sketchy at best. Great example, I just took a road trip, well, not a road trip, a business trip, to Virginia, to Tennessee, back to Illinois. And when you have to have an X amount of time to do that, I don't have time to stop for 18 hours to charge this on a regular standard outlet. Or even if I have a 240 volt outlet, it's still going to take me several hours to charge it. And that is a massive consideration. Now, this does offer DC quick charging, 100 kilowatts or 80, and that can charge it up, well, really, it can charge it almost in 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the battery state, and that is a huge pro. Now, as Hyundai does the accelerated charging affect battery longevity? The answer was not really, but we have a warranty, so don't worry about that. Hyundai claims this is really one of the most efficient electric vehicles on the road. And let's talk about what that means, because that's an important point to make, and it's a valid one. If you take an F-150 pickup truck or a Honda Civic and you put a 40-gallon fuel tank in the F-150 pickup truck, of course it's going to go much farther on that tank than a Honda Civic with a 13-gallon tank, regardless of efficiency. But the Civic's still more efficient. It gets better miles per gallon, but it can't go as far without filling up first. That's the point they're trying to make with this. It doesn't have the biggest battery pack in the market, but it's the most efficient at using the batteries that it has. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's like the equivalent of me handing you a brand new smartphone that you've just paid $1,200 for and saying, this is the best smartphone on the market. But guess what? You can only use it for 2 hours before you have to turn it off, plug it in, and wait anywhere from, well, 30 minutes to 18 hours to use it again until it charges. That's what it's like owning an electric vehicle in this current market. Now, when you put an electric vehicle like the Ioniq on the lift, there's something obvious about it that maybe the general public doesn't think about. Take a look at this. The whole underbelly of this car is covered. It's completely flat with these composite covers from nose to tail. And there's a reason for that. That's because they don't have to worry about plumbing an exhaust system from the front to the back that needs ventilation, heat shields. The second thing is you don't have to worry about other things such as engine oil. You don't need that. You don't have a lot of the fluids that a typical internal combustion setup would have. You have a small single reduction gear transmission and electric motors, an electric battery pack in the back, and the rest is just all covered up. The next cool thing about electric vehicles like the Ioniq, well, I can move this thing around in the garage. I can shut the garage, I can shut all the windows and doors, and I'm not gonna die from carbon monoxide emissions. And that's somebody, if you're working on your car, or I'm taking video of a car, you're working a shop, it's one of those little details. It's nice. The second thing is, there's no noise. I can creep this thing around all day. In fact, I can fit, I can bring over my mistresses. I won't wake up the 30 kids I have upstairs or my neighbors. That's a big pro if you're looking for something like that. Now let's talk about the suspension. Believe it or not, this is the same architecture as the Kia Niro we looked at last week. Same wheelbase, and that architecture was designed to be modified and just changed around kind of like a Lego to fit, again, battery packs, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or full EV. So you can change it around to like mini SUVs to cars. It's very versatile. And here you have the same standard strut-based front suspension with aluminum lower control arms, aluminum caliper, aluminum hub, and then of course your traditional strut. In the back of the EV Ioniq, this is where things get a lot different. In large part, it's because you have a much larger battery pack than the hybrid version. This has a 28 kilowatt hour battery compared to the hybrid's 1.56 kilowatt battery. So it's much bigger in size. More paneling, more covers, needs to expand in space, and the first thing that gets ditched is the multi-link rear suspension. And you go to a back to the basics approach with this torsion beam. It affects the entire dynamics of the car. So there are trade-offs here to get this size battery pack in here to make it an EV. Now, of course, all this technology really means nothing unless it's an enjoyable vehicle to drive and it does exactly what it's set out to do. So let's take a look at the driving impressions. The Ioniq EV. Of course, with every electric vehicle, really, when you get in here, you're just like, damn, this thing is quiet. You don't hear any engine noise, exhaust tone, intake, induction. It's just a ever so slightly whirring sound. And it has almost this calming effect on a daily drive. And of course, that starts to wear off and you hear tire noise, you hear road noise, all the associated things with driving a car. But for the most part, it's kind of a pleasure to drive every day. Now, most of the time I drive this for efficiency because that's really the point of this. And I made a complaint about the Kia Niro hybrid, that Kia tuned that to give you the feel like you aren't driving a hybrid. And they almost went to the total extreme. It has 19-inch wheels and tires with almost no sidewall. It gives you immediate steering response, but the ride was so choppy. I said, I wish I could have some 16-inch tires to see what it feels like. Well, my prayers have been answered here, and of course, They're 16-inch tires, a lot of sidewall, and this car feels much softer, much more compliant. It rides great, it feels good, it's not choppy over all the bumps, but the trade-off with having fatter sidewalls is, well, you lose steering feel. You don't have the directness. So it's a much more sloppy feeling driving experience. And I think Hyundai kind of went to the other extreme here. But these tires have literally no lateral grip. They have no dry grip. It's just, as soon as you put your foot down, they lose traction, especially the left front wheel, because that half shaft is shorter. It's always, you know, doing a one-wheel peel, which gets really annoying if you want to drive more aggressively. So it's like you have more compliance from the tires, but now you have less grip, and it's just, you basically have to putt this around unless you're replacing tires. The power delivery is so smooth. You get instantaneous torque, but then it kind of falls off and the car picks up speed. You don't get the sense of acceleration in here. It doesn't feel like a putter. It feels like a small 4-cylinder car in terms of acceleration, but without all the raspiness and nastiness of one buzzing the hell out of your body and your ears. Performance, again, is, you know, just, this is not about driving hard. And honestly, if you plan on driving hard, you're going to be extremely disappointed in this car. It's not at all about that. It does pick up quick. I've had it pretty much about 100 miles an hour on the highway, and it's a total non-issue. You just have to watch your battery gauge. Now here's a good example of what I'm talking about with the acceleration and turning, especially if you need to get out quick. It's just a one-wheel peel machine. I feel like, you know, you almost have to switch tires on this car, or eventually they're gonna have to figure out how to have some type of limited slip in this car. I mean, when you leave the traction stability control on, it's constantly cutting in, and it gets really annoying really quick. I mean, through the whole turn, it's trying to peel that left wheel. It just, you know, that's one of the things that hampers the driving experience about this car more than anything else. And it has to be noted, because, you know, you can't just judge this as an EV. You have to judge it as a regular car that you're going to drive every day. And not all the time are you just going straight. A lot of times I'm in rural roads, I have to turn left or right, and it's just one of those things that just annoys the hell out of me. So each individual driving mode you can customize. I can set a speed limit as well as how much the car will let me go in eco mode. So I have it set to 65 miles an hour, and it will not let you go over that unless you put your foot to the floor, and that'll let you exceed it, but you can see it in the speedometer. Next thing you can do is in each individual driving mode, you can set your brake regeneration, but you can also change it with the paddles. So when you click left, the left paddle, it gives you more levels of regeneration. So max is 3. So when you let off the gas pedal, it's basically like activating the brakes. It's like such extreme engine braking, like in a regular car. It'd be like downshifting in a first and a manual trans. You almost never have to use the brakes at all, except when you're crawling to a stop. I spent a lot of time complaining about the tires on this car, but it's one of its better features. I'll take the softer, more compliant tire with less traction, less grip, than having this thing just beat me up on bad pavement, because, you know, for a daily drive, you want it to be more comfortable. That's what I have a sports car for. That's what you get a sports car for. That's not what this is. Now, in terms of efficiency, it rates it at, you know, it rates it at miles per kilowatt hour. So my worst really is about 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour, and my best was 6.2 on a 40-mile round trip. So you're going to expect to be somewhere in the 5 range, and then you multiply whatever number you're getting, miles per kilowatt hour, times the size of the battery, which is 28 kilowatt hour battery. So if I'm getting 5 miles, then I times it by 28, and that gets you your overall range, which is all an approximation. It's an estimation of the state of charge that the computer does. You don't really know how much juice is going in the battery, how much remains, and how much really they've put in terms of overhead in the battery. They say it's a 28 kilowatt hour battery, but we know that they're doing this with a lot of electronics, a lot of batteries. They're making the battery packs bigger, not advertising it, so it has some overhead for degradation. Now, of course, I've asked Hyundai, what type of degradation can you expect? And they won't tell you. They'll just say, well, that's what a warranty's for. And that was exactly the response I got. So they won't even tell you what the degradation is, but they have built some overhead into the battery to accommodate that. The next thing to talk about with this electric car specifically is, well, it's efficiency, and it really is efficient. I'm getting way more than my last charge, I got 150 miles to my driving before I had to charge it. And that's really good. If you drive this for efficiency, you are not going to be disappointed, because that is what it's about. You just have to live within the range that you're allotted here with the battery pack. So at the end of the day, you're going to drive this. It's extremely comfortable. It is just like a normal vehicle to drive, and that's its best characteristic. It is absolutely, utterly not inspiring to drive in a performance fashion. This is all about efficiency and comfort, and that is where it totally excels, and it's one of the main reasons why you would choose this. And it's unsuspecting. It doesn't scream, hey, look at me, I'm driving an electric car. Nobody's gonna know even what the hell this thing is. So if you're somebody like that, you're gonna just run and jump and get into this thing right away. Final thoughts. This is the second vehicle on this architecture I've driven, and they are kind of polar opposites in direction in terms of driving dynamics. This is a much more soft, compliant, more comfortable riding car than I expected. A lot of it is the tires. A lot of it is the way the suspension is set up, and it handles broken pavement, all types of pavement extremely well. It's one of its best attributes. If you're looking for more steering response, more sportiness, more immediacy in braking and handling, you're not going to like this. But I think as a mainstream vehicle, as a compact type car, it is really, really enjoyable to drive. The electric range is pretty good. It's not there yet, and I think that's the biggest thing. This is not going to mainstream a lot of people, but if you're in that window of the average consumer or average person that drives X amount of miles a day, this is going to be a non-issue. The second thing is, it comes with a level 1 EV charger, which is a standard wall outlet. You can plug it in anywhere and charge it. It's just insanely long to charge this off of a regular outlet. If you're an owner, you need a level 2 charger, which if you go to websites like Amazon, you can get a Siemens version or one of the multiple different brands. That is going to cost you, at a minimum for a decent one, $500. And then to have the wiring done in your home, if you need it, to have an electrician come out, it might cost you a total of anywhere from $1,000 for the charger and the installation, all the way up to $2,000 if you're getting ripped off. And that is a hidden cost of this type of vehicle. Now, if you can live with charging, taking 15 to 20 hours to charge it every day, well, then you won't need that, but I can't deal with it. The second thing, there is a lot of free charging out there still, because EVs are not mainstreamed. So I can go to a lot of different places and charge it for free, but still, even having those level 2 chargers, it's gonna take almost 2 hours to charge it. So I gotta, I'm not just gonna go every day to lunch to charge my EV, and that's what I've done. And I think that's the biggest, that's the fine print about the electric vehicle platform right now, and it's not representative of this car, because if we had real DC chargers that could charge it in 15 to 20 minutes, it would kind of be a non-issue, but that infrastructure is not there. So that's kind of the thing. If you're not driving a lot, you're going to love it. If you drive a ton, if charging it all the time makes you kind of aggravated, you're not gonna deal with this. Last but not least, I'm a big fan of electric cars, and there's a guarantee that I'm going to own one in the near future. I just like a lot of things about it, namely charging at home. However, there's this strangeness about electric cars right now, and that is the fact that marketing and manufacturers focus on one thing. That is, how green is it to own it after you take delivery of it compared to a gasoline-powered car? Well, there's a lot more to it than just the ownership experience. So I emailed my Hyundai rep and I asked them, how is this car green? You stamp a Blue Drive logo on here. What's the carbon index? What's the carbon footprint of the car from raw materials to final production? Do you trace your OEMs who help supply you with parts, like the LG Chemical battery in this vehicle? Where do they get their cobalt from? Is it responsibly sourced? How's the smelting process? How's the steel manufacturing? All the things that you really want to know that cost, have a huge environmental impact, more so than you just driving to Walmart and back. That is what they could not provide me. The answer was, when I asked for it, no data. And that's totally unacceptable if you're going to pitch this as a green car. I think consumers really should have the right to know what the true cost is to manufacture a vehicle like this. If it's not any more green than making your standard Elantra, petrol or gasoline powered car, then just straight up say it. It's not really any more green. You just can save costs in terms of charging over the long run and the ownership. And that is kind of one of the things that I'd like to see more transparency on. But overall, I think what they set out to do here was make a really good EV. And that's exactly what they did.